Live from Liverpool, we need to talk about ghosts with Kevin Eustace.
Hello, you lovely, dare I say, beautiful people. Yes, it is indeed time to talk about ghosts, because we need to. This is a pre-record, because currently as you listen to this, me and Becca are probably arrived back to be truth. We are the truth. To be truthful. From Llyn Gwynant. Yes, in North Wales, we've spent the weekend camping with friends in a place where there's allegedly a Welsh Bigfoot. So that's interesting, isn't it? So I'm recording this on Thursday of last week. Yes, I am. Look at me in the past. Oh, it's all funky. Look at my flares. Look at my Walkman. It's a tape one. So that's what I'm doing now. So this is Sunday. So the Sunday Patreon episode, just in case you're a Patreon and you're wondering, hey, where's my episode? It is coming. I'm just going to upload it when I get back because we're going to record it in Wales. So you'll be hearing all of our travelling. And you know when me and Becca go travelling, we normally end up in arguments, normally down to me trying to drive and failing. So that's what you lucky Patreons have got to look forward to. There'll be no Patreon shouts out for this episode because it's a pre-record. So we'll double it up next week. So if you want your name shouted out on the Patreon, indeed sung at this part of the episode, then you need to go over to I got told off for that, didn't I, by Jim? Sorry, Jim, I'll get that right. To patreon.com/we need to talk about ghosts. There is no need for the www at the front because it's not 1993. More's the pity. If you go over there, we've got loads of extra episodes. We put out an extra episode every time we put out a normal episode. What is that noise? I don't know whether you heard it then, but the computer just went da-da-da-dum, and it's telling me that my Hotmail settings are out of date. Well, so's my t-shirt. So get with the net, chat. Anyway, guys, I hope you're all having a fantastic week, as well as it could have gone, and that you have no worries in your life. I know we all have worries in our life. I've got bloody worries in my life. My boss in work keeps just sending me texts. How you doing? And because I'm a paranoid android, I read that as, because we're about to sack you. And, there's a slight chance that could happen, but it might not. There's a good likelihood it won't as well. We're all in the hands of God, aren't we? If there is a God, and if there isn't, we're all just floating through space. Anyway, should we have some Week in Weird? I think we shall. Yes, it's alien specified again, but that's because I'm getting onto a bit of a track of aliens at the minute. Yes, I am. I do believe disclosure's coming closer and closer. So the Week in Weirds have been a bit alien-centric, and I'm all right with that because we all like a bit of weird, don't we? Don't we? Yes, we do, Kevin. This is quite I'm going to have a little bit of a mini rant in this Week is Weird. Week in Weird, even. And you'll see right now, because we're about to go into it right now.
Week in Weird.
Yes, it's time once more to delve into the week that is weird. Now, what's weird in this week is not necessarily from this time and space, but it is something that I found this week. So if you like, this is a bit of a personal Week in Weird for Kev. What I stumbled upon was a TV interview. You know, like TV phone-ins, if you like, that used to be all the rage. Somebody rings in like Trisha and Oprah. I think she'd done a bit in the day. You know, they ring up and go like, my husband's cheating on me. And the host goes, well, what do we do, Jeff? And Jeff goes, leave her. Yes. That sort of thing. Well, I found one that was from January. Jeremy Vine. Now, Jeremy Vine is a very well-respected BBC interviewer. And he has a programme on Channel 5, which is not a BBC channel, but where he does this similar thing. Now, a woman, God bless this woman, called up in January to say that she'd been abducted by aliens. Now, although he's a consummate professional broadcaster, the utter piss that was taken out of this poor woman was shocking. And I'm actually going to play a bit of this interview. I don't know whether they'll get into any trouble for that, but I'm kind of not arsed at this point. So here's what you'll hear now is her saying that she's been abducted. She's talking about the first UFO experience, I think. But listen to the reaction. It's shocking.
So we're going to speak to Vivian now from East Yorkshire, who was abducted by aliens.
Oh, my. OK, Vivian, what happened?
Yes, I do realise it's very, very hard for people who haven't actually seen them to understand. I first saw my first one, 74, over the power station in Kirkstall, Leeds.
Okay.
But I wasn't the only one. There was a lot of kids around me at the time who all saw this silver-like saucer thing going up and down the clouds and then shoot off at unbelievable speed.
Could it have been a
And
frisbee?
Honest to God, the poor woman is just... the minute she says, I think I was abducted by aliens, there's sniggers and laughter. They've dressed someone up as an alien in the audience, like in a grey mask. There's like a fella who's a guest, like a celebrity guest. He's in bulk, literally eyes closed, laughing as this poor woman's just trying to say what she's been through. And I think it's absolutely horrible, even when she explains how horrible it is and why would she make it up. You know, this is the point. When she's saying, like, her kids are laughing at her and they're saying, oh, it's funny, mum's being taken by aliens, and that people are calling him mentally ill. He doesn't accept all this. He just says, well, was you drinking? Listen to this.
And also, they think you're mentally ill as well when you've seen these things.
Okay.
So,
Was there... You were sober that night, Vivian? Can I check? You hadn't been drinking?
I don't drink.
There you go. I mean, it's the little laughs and sniggers in the audience that do it for me. And also, that, like, wind me up, and it's also the fact that, like, this call has been screened, so they've purposely thought, we'll take the piss out of it. We'll get someone dressed up in an outfit. It's just really shocking. It's almost borderline bullying, I think. But, I mean, to be fair, in essence, to Jeremy Vine, because he then comes back in at the end and must realise that it looks like they're just taking the mick. And he's like, well, no, I'm very open to all this, so, take it with a pinch of salt. But I just think, if this is the attitude that we have when a normal person turns around and says, guess what happened to me? No wonder people aren't speaking up, if it is happening. So what a boring world everyone must force us into. It really winds me up that, because we all know we like ghost stories, blah, blah, blah. If you've got a good ghost story like you guys have, do send it in, because I'm going to keep championing people's real stories. And we can say F you to the naysayers. Anyway, sorry for the rant. That's been this week's Weekend Weird.
Weekend Weird.
So there you go. That's my little soapbox rant for this week. Interestingly, because of like how quick and snappy they are on copyright laws, there's a good chance this episode's going to be pulled. So this could be a collector's edition. Yes, at least I'll still have the MP3. Anyway, last week, you may recall, it's only a few days ago for me actually, with it being a pre-record. But anyway, last week I did ask you all if you could send in, because we're running a bit short on stories. And did you answer in your droves. So thank you very much. I want to give, whilst we're here live on air, although it's a pre-record, a big thank you to the people who've sent them in. So Tony, Ian, Nina, Sian, many people have sent them in. But we still have room for more. So if you're sitting on a story and you think, you know what, maybe I won't send it in, do send it in. Send it in to contact@talkaboutghosts.com. And what I will do, what this guy here with grey hair and two thumbs currently pointing them at his chest, what I will do is I'll read them out and we'll all get spooked together. And that's what we're going to do right now. Now, our first email comes in from Kim, and she writes a couple of stories from the 80s, Rubik's Cubes and Walkmans. She says, hello, Kevin. Hello. Please just use my first name for this one if you use it on the show. Well, I am, and I have. Thank you, Kim. Full disclosure, I sent this email to the Ghost Story guys a year ago along with a few other stories. They used some in October, so I've deleted those from this email. I'm assuming they aren't going to use the rest. They're a bit longish. Well, I love long stories, and I love the Ghost Story guys. So both of these things are no issue at all to me, to moi, to myself, and I. All four of us. And this first story is called The Haunted Duplex. Weird stuff was always happening in the duplex where I lived in my final year of undergraduate studies. Heavy double-hung windows opening by themselves, the lid of a wooden box lifting by itself, the telephone moving across the room whilst my roommate and I watched. That sort of thing. The strangest thing by far was the fact that it didn't freak me out. I remember saying thank you once the window opened of its own accord on a particularly stuffy day. Just as matter of fact as if there was someone there. A visible someone. One night I had a dream that there were spirits, in brackets, much like those that came out of the Ark of the Covenant in Raiders of the Lost Ark, coming out of the stove. I got up and inspected the stove only to find that my roommate had left it on just enough that the gas was escaping. Subconscious, or was someone sending me a warning in my dream? This was a shotgun shack, so the rooms were all aligned from front of the house to the back. If you fired a shotgun through the front door, it would go out the back. My roommate's bedroom was at the back, and then you had to walk through either my room or the bathroom to get to the kitchen. One night there was a crash in her bedroom. Then the doors to my room flew open, one after the other, and I heard the tinkling of glass in the kitchen. This woke me out of a sound sleep, and I had the definite impression that a woman had run through my room. I went to check on my roommate, and the first thing she said was, "Did you see her?" She then said she had no idea why she said that. She hadn't seen anything and had woken because of the lamp on the side table crashing to the ground. It was indeed laying on the floor and would have accounted for the crash I heard. I decided to look the old place up, and it's no longer there. Wonder what led to that. It was a sturdy old place with no obvious structural issues and a great location for off-campus housing. Well, that's very strange, Kim. I do like that story. Also, I am very happy that I now know the meaning of shotgun shack. I'm sure I've heard it in a song somewhere, but I can't recall which one. I'm sure you'll let me know. Listeners, that is. But yes, a shotgun shack. And that's terrifying, especially if she just woke up and went, "Did you see her?" And then he went, "What was that?" She went, "I've no idea why I've said that. Sorry. Must be the gin." That's absolutely petrifying. Well done, Kim. Okay, let's have your second story. And this story is called The Haunted Museum. I was a volunteer at the museum on campus, an assistant curator as needed when the curator was out of town. I loved the old place and often studied there in between classes and late into the night. It was empty a lot, so it was a good quiet place to hang out and read. Being a student of history at the time, I had a lot of reading to do. There was one room I absolutely refused to be in by myself and would only clean in there if the curator accompanied me. It was an odd little room between two large classrooms, and I don't know what purpose it would have served back in the day when the building was a classroom building. I'd guess storage or a cloakroom, but there was a window, so I don't know. It was always cold in there, and the hairs on the back of my neck stood up just walking in there. I used to have a photo of myself in there, and I honestly looked haunted. It was particularly remarkable because the rest of the place was so warm and inviting. I started having a recurring dream of a woman with long, straight, dark hair in a white dress or nightgown running away from the museum. In the dream, I was always looking out of the window of that room, watching her run away. I was so frightened for her because it was obvious she was fleeing for her life. I finally told the curator, and he said there was a story of a woman that had killed herself in the museum under suspicious circumstances, but that was all he knew and had never been able to find anything more about it. We discussed a seance, but decided that was a definite no, and we could live without knowing. During this time, a couple of friends sat down with me and told me that they were concerned I was not acting myself. They pointed out that it was not safe to be walking home alone in the middle of the night, and it was just odd for me to be alone so much. I didn't take them seriously until after I graduated and was no longer working at the museum or living in the haunted bungalow. Looking back, I feel I was in a bit of a fog and I'd been making decisions that were not like me. Not enough sleep and stress from the last year of college, or something else. Thanks for the many hours of entertainment. I'm looking forward to reading the book, but I'm waiting for the signed copy. Best to Becca, from Kim. Well, thank you, Kim. That is petrifying. I really visualised looking out of that window at the woman in white. That was absolutely terrifying, I tell ye. Well done. Oh, in relation to the signed copies of the book, we're waiting for our arrival from Amazon. We haven't even got a copy yet of the book, and then we're going to sign them. We're going to find out a way to sell them via the website as opposed to Amazon, because we need to get them and sign them, and then you can't send them back to Amazon. You need to put it up on your own site, apparently. And we also have a couple of people in Australia, Tony and Jay, who are looking for signed copies too. So we're going to see if we can sort out what that postage would be and apply that to the site, because I have no earthly idea. But this is just to say we are on it and we haven't forgot about you. But Kim, enough of me waffling about the book. Those stories were fantastic and terrifying. What was the thing? The stress at the end, that you were in a bit of a fog? Was it a bit of a possession? Will we ever know? I don't know. But if you've got any more, Kim, then do please send them in. And again, like I say, if you've got a story like Kim's, Doesn't have to be just like it. It can be your own little personal paranormal tale, a PPT. Then send it in, contact@talkaboutghosts.com. Okay, let's have one more before a midpoint. Huzzah! Our next email comes in from new contributor, Denise Martzel. So thank you, Denise. And hers is entitled My Cousin's Guardian. Ooh. Hello, Kevin and Becca. Hello. Hello. I hope you're both doing well. I am. Are you, Beck? Yes, I'm not doing too bad, thank you. Well, good. Good to hear. I've recently discovered your podcast and have been binge listening for the past few weeks. You've been asking for some stories. Yes, I have. So here's one. Great. And this is your story. My family has always believed in ghosts and spirits. My mum and grandma are from Thailand and seem to have some sort of psychic ability. Dreams that come true, feelings of dread before something bad happens, even seeing or sensing ghosts in different places. I think growing up around them has opened me up to having these experiences. I have a few stories to tell you, but I'll start with this one first. Growing up, my younger brother and I spent a lot of time with our cousin, David. We were close in age and always played together. Once, my brother and I were spending the night at David's house, and he started telling us about the ghost that stayed there. He said it was an old woman that would follow him around or stand in the corner of his room whilst he slept. Even though I believed in ghosts, I was convinced that David was just trying to scare us. I mentioned it to my aunt when we were in the kitchen together, and she said, "He's telling the truth. I feel her tug on my shirt when I'm in the kitchen, and I feel cold spots." I was thoroughly freaked out, but I wanted to play it off like it was no big deal. That night, we all slept in David's room. I made the boys share the top bunk and I got the bottom bunk to myself. I'd always had trouble sleeping through the night and still do, so it wasn't unusual for me when I woke up in the middle of the night. But what was unusual was feeling instantly alert and scared to open my eyes. I slowly opened them and looked to the corner of the bedroom, convinced that I would see the old woman standing there. But to my surprise, I didn't see anything. I felt relieved and shifted on the bed so I could get back to sleep. The ladder to the top bunk was in front of my bed and I happened to glance at it whilst I was moving. That's when I saw it. It wasn't a full apparition like David said. It was more like a cloudy image. I could see everything around the room perfectly, but when I looked on the ladder, it was blurry and out of focus. I couldn't make out any features, but I knew something was there on the ladder looking at my brother and my cousin whilst they were asleep. I was too scared to scream. Instead, I threw the blanket over my head and just waited to feel a tug on my blanket. Eventually, I fell back asleep, and when I woke up in the morning, everything was back to normal. We all got dressed and spent the day playing games and swimming as if we hadn't just spent the night with a ghost watching us. At one point, I was alone with my cousin, and I asked if he had seen the woman whilst we were there. He said just once, last night after my brother and I had fell asleep. He talked to her whilst she was on the ladder. I hope you enjoyed the story. I'll send more soon. Denise. Wow, Denise, that is petrifying. Is there anything more scary than an old woman standing in a corner? I mean a dead old woman, like a ghost. You know, I'm not talking about your nan who's just like got dementia and is in the corner. That's fine. She's old. She's going to wander into corners. Leave her alone. Don't get the Ouija board out or call an exorcist. It's your nan. But if it's a ghost, then yes, petrifying, especially if she's then coming over and standing on the ladder and going, just going to watch you whilst you sleep. Be like, no, can you kindly just do one, please? Yes, and could you fetch me some new underpants too whilst you're at it? Thank you very much. That is petrifying, Denise. I am actually quite scared, so I think we need a midpoint. Do we need a midpoint? Yes, we do. I need a coffee. Wo ist denn Midpoint? Ein Midpoint ist in meinen Hausen. Wenn es denn Midpoint? Ein Midpoint ist denn now. Now? Ja, now. I always think, what if my neighbours hear me doing that? They'd be like, I speak fluent German actually, and he's saying something about a midpoint and having a party. Should we knock on? Bring a bottle. Anyway, it is the midpoint. I hope that you're all fantastically well and doing as well and as safely as you can be during this nonsense called Life as It Stands in 2020. That's its full title. Yes, so what's new in the world? Well, obviously next Wednesday we have the 3rd episode of The Dark Paranormal coming out. Yes, what I will say, I will reiterate that will be the last time The Dark Paranormal is on this podcast feed. then it tots off to be its own little show. So I will say this. If you're wondering after next week where it disappeared to, it is now its own podcast. You need to search for The Dark Paranormal and go and subscribe. Otherwise, you simply won't get it. Yes, sorry to tell you. What will happen instead is that on every Wednesday, whilst we're in this lockdowny still thing, and I'm still off work, then we will be putting out once a week on a Wednesday, and we don't need to talk about ghosts. Yes, and The Dark Paranormal will toddle off to its own show from episode 4. So next Wednesday will be the final Dark Paranormal on this feed. It's vital that I tell you that for 2 reasons. 1, you won't be able to hear it unless you go and subscribe. And 2, you won't be able to hear it unless you go and subscribe. I did have a different second point, but for the life of me, I can't remember what it was. My mother would say that must be a lie. I've never believed that either. I just forgot about it, Mother. I am not a liar. Anyway, shall we get back to the show? I believe we should. So last week, as I did say we need more stories. And thank you so much to everyone who sent them in. But we still need more stories. So if you are sitting on a story, just send it in. Don't worry about the grammar. Don't worry if you think it's too short, too long, it's not interesting enough. I will sort all that out. Send it in to contact@talkaboutghosts.com and I will read it out. Okay, let's get back to the shizzle, the bizzle, the show, the go, the no, the mo. Sorry, I'm in a rhyming mood today. Let's just get back to it. To it, to hit, to thit, to bit. And we are back, like the back of a back thing that's been back for good. And our next email comes in from Patrick Marshall. Hello, Patrick. He writes, hello, Kevin. Oh, hello, Patrick again. I had been debating for some time now if I should send this email in, and finally decided to. My name is Patrick, and I live in El Paso, Texas. What I'm about to tell you... Why did I turn into Irish then? I have no idea. What I'm about to tell you is a small little appetizer to whet your palate. If you like what you read and are curious, I'll send in more. Okay, before I read your story out, Patrick, I will say this. Send in more. I'm already interested, for you've said, whet your palate, and I like that. Well done, Patrick. Anyway, Patrick, your appetite whettener, or story, as I like to say. The last 15 plus years, I've worked and volunteered in theatres here in town. One particular place is where the story I'm about to tell you took place. It's a 50-year-old theatre called the El Paso Playhouse, built in the 1930s, but not made into an actual theatre until the 50s. It's been a church, a restaurant, and has a rich history. One day, a friend and myself had to do work at another place down the street from the playhouse. He asked me to stop by the theatre and pick up some tools that we were going to need for the job. Now, the front entrance to the theatre has 2 big doors made from metal framing and glass. The lock is a magnetic lock, so you unlock the door or lock it. No matter where you are in the theatre, you're going to hear that door. When I went there that day, I was completely alone and there was no one there. But doing theatre tech, I'm used to being there early before anyone and staying late after everyone has left till all hours of the night, painting or building sets. As I entered the theatre, I left the door unlocked, since I knew I wasn't going to be there very long. I walked through the auditorium, up to the stage and around the corner to the wood shop where we kept the tools. I grabbed what I needed and made my way out. Everything was just fine when I entered, and as I was leaving, I just had a little uneasy feeling that I was being watched as I exited the auditorium and got to the front door. Then I noticed the door was now locked, knowing that I was completely alone and left it unlocked when I walked in. I knew at that moment why I had such an uneasy feeling, so I turned around and walked out the side door. This isn't my only theatre-related story. If you'd like to hear more, especially from this particular theatre, let me know and I'll send it in. Like what happened after I left the theatre and told my friend what happened. Till next time. Regards, Patrick. Well, Patrick, I think on behalf of every listener that just listened to that story, we love theatre ghosts. We love ghosts. We love theatres. Collectively, what we're trying to say is send in more stories. So, theatres are terrifying, yes. Do you know that we've got a theatre? We've got loads of little old theatres in Liverpool city centre, because obviously we're a very old town. Well, it was officially made a town, I think, in 1200 or something stupid. or 1700, but it's been here since 1200s anyway. Probably longer. Anyway, we've got loads of little theatres dotted around town. We've got the Royal Court. We've got the Liverpool Empire. We've got one that was called the Neptune Theatre. It's now called the Brian Epstein Theatre after the Beatles manager. But they're all really, really old, like hundreds and hundreds of years old. I'll have to go there when everything calms down a bit. And especially that Epstein Theatre, there's something very spooky about the Epstein Theatre. It's very weird, very Art Deco, very old, and definitely very haunted. And I actually know a few people who work there that I've not talked about ghosts with. So yeah, I'm going to do a theatre special sometime in the future. And that's thanks to your email, Patrick. So, you know, if you're like Patrick and you're sitting on a story, send them in. You never know where it's going to lead. It might lead to me walking around my hometown with a recorder and a camera and saying, show me some ghosts, please. So thank you, Patrick. You've set me on a little mission there. Our next email is from another first-time contributor, and they go by the name of Nancy Robinson. And this is their story. My experience took place in 2002 on the eastern shore of Virginia in the town of Quimby. I was travelling with my parents in their motorhome and we stopped at an RV resort, Thousand Trails Virginia Landing, of which they were members. We'd been there several times over the years. It's a remote location. You take a several-mile drive through the pine woods, passing patches of farmland down the peninsula, to the end arriving at the entrance to the park. It's located on the Atlantic Ocean side, but it's protected by marshland and barrier islands. It was October, but still lovely warm temperatures, with a nice breeze, and there was no need for air conditioning. This time of year is very quiet there. Very few members were there, so we had our pick of campsites. After parking, my dad levelled us out and began hooking up water and electric. My mum and I prepared the interior, which included releasing the 2 slide-outs. Dad appeared at the door to let us know that electric was connected, however none of the electric was working. He discovered the campsite's electric box wasn't working. Dad didn't feel like unhooking everything and moving to another site, and since no other campers were anywhere near us, he stretched the cord to the site next to us to use that box. We had a pleasant day, chatting, having drinks and playing board games. The campground was always a bit buggy due to marshland, but we did take note of the extreme amount of horseflies that were swatting all day. The car that we were towing was covered in them all as well. We just chalked it up to us being the only people around, so we got all the bugs' attention. When it was time to retire, we decided to leave the windows open instead of air conditioning. It wasn't chilly at all, just a beautiful mild evening. My parents' bedroom was at the rear of the motorhome. I slept on the pull-out sofa in the living room area. The kitchen was located between where I slept and their bedroom. I fell asleep watching a baseball game on the TV. I woke up in the wee hours needing the restroom, no pun intended. The room was dark and the television was off. Now, I've always been a scaredy cat of the dark, as I've had a few paranormal experiences before, so I've always slept with the covers over my head, even as an adult. I moved the covers slightly, and I could hear what sounded like my parents' television on in the other room. It was voices, but I couldn't make out what they were saying, like a whispering of voices, but I couldn't make out words. It also felt super cold in the room. The windows were open, and it was pleasant outside. This was different. A bone-chilling cold. I never realised what that meant until this experience. It's not a cold that I've ever had before. I could also sense something like I wasn't alone in the room. I peered over the covers and saw someone standing in front of the refrigerator. It was dark in the room. Even the refrigerator was black, but this was blacker than that. My parents' door was shut, but there was a flickering light coming from under their door that I presumed to be their television, which helped to frame the outline of the figure. Whoever they were tall, nearly as tall as the ceiling. I ducked back under the covers, thinking surely I must be dreaming. I peeked out again. Nope, they're still there. I couldn't make out any eyes or features, only a tall, solid, black, cloaked figure with what looked to be a tall planter's hat, like a tall cowboy hat with a wide brim, like a farmer wears in a field. Even though I didn't see eyes, I could feel it staring at me. It didn't move as far as I could tell. Thank goodness, because it was a small space and I wasn't that far away. I took another peek out of the covers. Nope, definitely not dreaming. Still there, still voices. All I could think of is either someone has entered our motorhome or it was something from beyond. Neither option was appealing. However, I thought if someone is going to attack me, I want to be able to see. There was a light switch above my head. I closed my eyes, in brackets, I have no idea why that was useful, and with one quick motion sat up and turned the light on. Then, nothing. Whatever was there was poof, gone, but lingering was the bone-chilling cold. I got up shivering and ran back to my parents' room and opened the door. No television was on and they were fast asleep. Still shivering from the cold, I shook my mum awake and she got up with me and questioned the cold as well. I told her what I experienced and she didn't laugh, but I'm not sure she believed me. She couldn't explain the cold though. She even took the dog out for a quick break and it was much warmer outside than inside the motorhome with the windows open. I don't know how, but I finally got back to sleep with the lights on, of course. We didn't talk about it the next morning. I was still in shock, but my parents don't believe in such things. However, when we opened the privacy curtains covering the windshield, it was cracked. One long crack from top to bottom, which definitely had not been there when we arrived, and considering its size, we surely would have noticed it happening. I didn't go back with them to the resort for 12 years. When I finally did go back in 2014, the campsite we stayed in was blocked off, not to be used. Very odd indeed. To this day, I still need a light source in the room when I'm sleeping. I've looked for answers over the years, and I discovered people with similar experiences with the HATMAN, if that's who I encountered. I told a friend of mine who's Wiccan about my experience. He suggested it wasn't anything malevolent, but a spirit coming back to check on their land. Now, I have no idea if that's true. It sure didn't seem harmless at the time, and the damaged windscreen is still unexplained. During my 2014 visit, I met a friend for dinner that lives in the area. They told me that the area was occupied by Native Americans in the early years. There's a legend that they were all driven down to the end of the peninsula by colonists, lined up over a large hole, shot and buried in a mass grave. The end of the peninsula is where Virginia Landing is located. Could this have something to do with what I experienced? I may never know the answer. Wowza, Nancy. Bloody hell, stories don't come much better than that. That's terrifying, and yet again we see the HATMAN. Yes, we do. We had a lot of people get in touch since I mentioned the HATMAN. I mean, I didn't invent the HATMAN. We know it's a trope. But since I mentioned it on last week's show, we've had people saying, yes, I've experienced it too. And I'll be reading them out on the next show, I think. But wow, the HATMAN cometh again. Into a motorhome as well. You don't often think about motorhomes being haunted. There's one story that I remember reading out maybe over a year ago on this show about a haunted caravan. But you don't tend to hear temporary static homes being haunted. I don't know. Maybe you do. Maybe I've just not heard too much of them. But what an amazing story. Really well told. Thank you very much, Nancy. And if you do have any more, do send them in. So we would normally at this point read your reviews out because you're all wonderful people. But we're going to save that again for next week because it's a pre-record. Give them a chance to pack up. Pack up. Give them a chance to come in even. And then we'll read them all out. So in the meantime and in between time, do send your stories in. Do have a wonderful time. And do sign up to Patreon if you wish. Don't forget, you can sign up to Patreon either by clicking in the show notes below or visiting patreon.com/we need to talk about ghosts. And today's Patreon episode will or should be, unless we died in a car crash on the way home. What a horrible thing to say. I'm just going to touch wood, cross myself, and hopefully see a magpie. Will be me and Becca talking about being camping in remote North Wales. You don't even get a phone signal there, but there is allegedly a Bigfoot there. The Llyn Gwynant Bigfoot. It's at the foot of Mount Snowdon in Wales. Yes. We're going mountain hunting. Well, you can't hunt a mountain, but you get what I mean. I hope that you all have a fantastic week, and we will see you on Wednesday for The Darkness. Yes, The Dark Paranormal, episode 3, the last one on this feed. Don't forget, go and search it on wherever you get your pods and subscribe. Otherwise, it will be the last one ever that you hear. And by lordy, do we have a doozy, as they say in the States. It is terrifying. I promise you that. Okay, guys, I will love you and leave you. And take care, and I will speak to you through the week. Tatty bye.